talking to a young mother recently, and she said, well, what about having people come to our house? And the problem is with that, you have to reciprocate. And how would you say, well, they can come to my house, but I don't trust you? So I just think sleepovers aren't a good idea. It starts getting really messy when you get into family, an extended family. So what I would recommend is that you and your husband sit down realistically and begin to discuss the situation, and then you can come up with your uh, your policy on it. And once you set a policy in place, you can explain it to everybody that you know even before it comes up. So let's say you have cousins that live in town, and you and your husband might take your brother-in-law and sister out to dinner, and while you're there, just share with them that you've come up with this new policy, and it includes everyone and whatever it is that you've decided. And so it's a lot easier to tell people up front than it is to wait until it gets sticky and awkward. The other thing you need to do is talk with your children. Now, of course, I don't think it would be appropriate to tell them all the reasons why to concern them, but they just need to know that you've decided it's in their best interest and this is our new policy, and you lay it out for them so that they're aware, and that when you're at church or over at a friend's house, they don't all come running in and say, oh, mom, can Susie spend the night, because they know what the policy is. So the best thing to do is do it ahead of time. Keep the communication open with your children, but let them know this is our policy. And anyone asking to sleep over before teen years doesn't need to know much. Teen years, you just still stick with the policy. And then you can have more deeper conversations with those. You're going to have to bear with me as I work through here, trying to look at some of the questions. Here's a question from KP. Preschool age child fussing and whining and clingy when I'm around, the mom, but fine and completely different when the mom's not around. Okay, so what do we do? Well, one of the things when we think about parenting, you don't want to just find fixes. Now, I know when I was raising my children, a lot of times I would have been pleased with just a fix. But the truth really is we want a thought-through plan of what we're going to do and why we're going to do it. Okay, so let's say little Amelia is compliant and friendly. She does no whining when she's with other people. And yet when she's with you, she whines, she's fussy. Okay, there is a problem. And I think that there are two things at work here. First is you represent authority to her in a way nobody else does. So because of the fall of man in the Garden of Eden, we have rebellious hearts. And if you don't know it, your children have rebellious hearts. And our deep-seated resentment and rebellion to authority is ultimately against God. But parents, whether they are believers or not, represent authority to children. And so you are going to be a target of their rebellion to authority in a way that no one else is. So if they were whining and complaining everywhere, then we would talk about other ways of handling it. But since dear little Amelia is doing it just for you, then the problem is you need to teach and train her when it's not the issue, away from other people. So you're at home, she's whining and so forth. Why is she whining? Because it works. She's controlling you, she does what she wants, and you're not in control. And so you have to take the time. You'll hear me say it over and over and over. Quoting from Paul Tripp, one of my very favorite lines is, good parenting takes time. Good parenting takes time. Okay, let's all say it together in a chorus. Good parenting takes time. And majority of your job practical job throughout the first 12 years is a lot of training. And what you have to do is identify the problem and then take the time to work with it. If you are busy, you're on your phone, you're on the computer, you're talking to other women, you're doing something else, and Amelia is whining and complaining, and you just do one of two things: ignore it, or maybe give her what she wants, or you snap at her and you tell her to be quiet or stop it. Okay, you haven't dealt with anything. You've just micromanaged the situation, and you're just dealing with the outside behavior, not in very good ways, and you're not dealing with the heart and what's really going on inside. So you're going to have to take the time. That means for a lot of moms, they're going to have to just raise their awareness so much. And so that you want one thing to go up and another thing to come down. So you want your awareness to go up to realize, excuse me, that this is going on and it's happening and you're not oblivious to it. The other thing is what you want to bring down is an emotional reaction that you get mad, you're irritated. A lot of times the irritation is because they've been whining, complaining and whining for a long time and you haven't dealt with it, but it's been like something poking you in the neck. When you finally deal with it, you snap at it. And so we have to raise our awareness, then bring down your reaction and your emotions so you can respond to it. And a very good way of responding things is take a child away from everyone else and sit down and talk with them and explain it to them. The very, very best way to deal with it is to deal with it when it's the issue and talk about it when it isn't. So at home later, or when emotions aren't high and things are on an equal level, then you sit down and you talk about it. Okay, Amelia, let's talk about what happened today. And begin talk with it. And she said, well, Mom, you don't understand. I'd ask you twice real nicely and you just didn't pay attention to me. We don't know what'll come out of the conversation. So, or it just may be that she whines because it works and she wants to control you and she wants to be the God of the world who says, I want things the way I want and I'm going to complain and whine until I get it. So you want to deal with the root problem and you want to help her learn to be under your control and teach her how to respond to irritations the way you lovingly respond to her, and then help her to realize that whining is not going to get her what she wants. Complaining will never do it, because a lot of children are trained real well from their parents to know just exactly how much to push so they can get what they want. And so, oh, by the way, good parenting takes time. So I think this is a training issue, and I would do as much as I can privately. And sometimes ignoring it will extinguish it, that you just tell her to go to her room, and when she comes back and uses a different voice, you can hear it. Sometimes that works. So, but first you've got to get to these deeper problems before we actually figure out how to attack the whining, because we don't know what the child is doing. Now, the woman who put that on here, if she wants to write on it, then we might be able to get a little more information on it. Okay, now I don't see any more questions being added. We've got some viewers. Why don't y'all go over here and add some more questions so we can do it? Okay, we've got picky eaters. How do you deal with picky eaters? Well, first thing I want to tell you is your children are not going to starve to death. And so it also depends on what age they are. One of the first things I will tell you is, they will eventually eat, but you don't want to make the table a battleground. What to eat or not to eat never, ever needs to be the battle. Remember when we were talking about whining a while ago? Well, sometimes children will look for all kinds of ways to control you and to control their environment, because they really kind of think that they are God and they want to operate in such a way. All right, so let's say But there's a myriad of things that work here. Number one, it could be that they have a stomach issue and they're allergic, or it doesn't feel good to them, it bothers them. It could be that they don't have an allergy or problem, but they just don't like it. One of mine, excuse me just a minute, excuse me. One of mine growing up just simply didn't like beans, and we do eat a lot of beans, but the issue wasn't rebellion, it wasn't picky in other areas, but it was just beans. So any night that we had beans, he was always welcome to go and make himself something else. We had an alternative, like he could make a sandwich if he wanted to, if he didn't want to have the beans. What you don't want to do is cater to your children and help develop the pickiness, and you don't want it to be a control issue, but you don't want it to be handled at the dinner table. So this is definitely one of those issues you handle somewhere else, and then, but not at the table, because eating at the table is a relational rather than a nutritional opportunity. Another thing that you can do with picky eaters is to have the parents role model non-picky eaters. And sometimes that doesn't work. I know a lot of moms, vast majority of moms, that have talked to me about picky eaters. When I ask a little more questions, I find out that they have like a very tall, deep voice picky eater in the house, or even maybe the mom. But usually it's the dad that is sort of what the mom would target, a picky eater. So again, that's something for the two of you to talk about when it's not the issue. Handle it, talk with each other, and then you can have a policy. I would not have do or die over things, but discuss and decide how you want to handle it. Talk with the kids when they're not at the table, and then deal with it at the table. I found with my children that when they were hungry, they liked to eat. So if someone's really picky about something, after a while they may get hungry. I wouldn't force it. I wouldn't make them eat something. But it never was a real issue in our home, and so it was easy to have a lot of grace. Personally, I would rather have grace so that you have a relational good time at the meal instead, and never make food the issue. Never. It never has to be the issue. But one of the things would be to offer alternatives if you think it's truly a choice and not control. And then if they choose not to eat and you feel like you two have decided this is how it's to be handled, then they don't get to come back in later and eat some ice cream or have dessert or more food if they didn't choose to eat the dinner. Very different for really small children, but certainly when they get to an age, they start being picky, then don't allow them to fill up later. They can always wait till breakfast because they aren't going to starve because they're not newborns. Okay, here's a really good question. Kids and selfishness. My kids constantly want to be first in line, have first pick, have the best toy, and I feel like I'm a referee every minute. Any suggestions or creative way to deal with selfishness in kids? Yes. Take Genesis 3 out of the Bible. Because that's the problem. The problem is, of course, they're immature, but the big problem is their hearts. And so much of what parents try to do is behavior modification. If you're taking notes, write down the two words, behavior modification. This was the big mistake that I will say in the last 25 years, a lot of what Christian parents have done is they bought into a lie that it was the big, big, big lie of parenting. Christian parenting is good parenting in, good kids out. And mostly they use behavior modification and the application of biblical principles. Train up a child in the way he should go. So they're diligently training rights and wrong, list of do or dat, making sure they do their chores, making sure they've got their homework done. Yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, and doing a lot of the training that we're talking about. But the lie is that we parents thought by doing that, we were really getting to the bottom issue and it would really affect our children. We were truly developing them. And the truth is, a lot of it was not, because really our children have only one problem. And it's the same problem that we have. It's their hearts. Because I'm older than probably anybody on here, and some of you added together. And I still tell you, it's just all about me. It's all about me. It's all about me. As well as I know the Lord, as long as I've known Him, as much growth and mature and transformation that's happened, I tell you, I'm still first in my affections all the time. Okay? If I'm not selfish, I want to be selfish. And I want to be selfish about all of my life. What about you? Okay, so Kyla, you're dealing with children that are immature and they don't always cover up their selfishness maybe as well as you and I do. So the real root issue is their heart. So remember our principle. We deal with it when it's the issue. We discuss it when it's not. So when it's not the issue, I would have conversations with your children about why we give to others. And when you're reading the Jesus Storybook Bible or other devotions, or you're listening to good stories, or you're reading just fiction books together, look for places where there's selfishness and unselfishness, and talk about it a little bit. Talk about how it made you feel when someone acted this way. And you might look for Bible verses that you could have them memorize. For example, Jesus said, I came to serve, not to be served, and give my life a ransom for many. Mark 16, I don't know where it is. You Google it and look it up. Okay? But he said he came to serve. Philippians 2 and many other places say we're to walk in his footsteps, follow his example, and have our hearts be transformed like him. So one of the very blessed ways that you can teach your children not to be selfish is that they watch you not being selfish. I'm not talking about inappropriate codependency or not having boundaries, but true service, and that you do it with a gracious smile and sweet spirit, that they hear that. One of the other ways to deal with something is you have a character trait like this, selfishness. And it just comes, all kids have it. It just comes with the human being. So let's look at selfishness and let's think, what is the corollary positive character trait that is the opposite? Well, there's unselfishness, but also there is gratitude and a lack of entitlement. And a lot of children today, our whole nation, we just have a nation of entitled people. And so, like I told you, we struggle from the beginning with selfishness. And then when you think you have the right to be entitled to something, it just raises the level of entitlement, selfishness so much more. Because then you really feel that you should be selfish because it's right. That's the whole message that's out there across our nation, is do what feels best for you. It's all about you. It's all about you. It's all about you. And then you have children and they're saying, Mom, it's all about me. It's all about me. And that's all they hear everywhere else. So one of your jobs in training is to train up your child's heart. Take the time. Look for opportunities to show generosity. Now, first, you and your husband need to role model it for them. Let them see without resentment your generosity of your time and your money and your material possessions. And Some people I know have their children go through their own toys and donate them to other people, and look for ways that your family can serve and be generous. Not generous, honey, here's $10, you go get something, but have them learn to be generous with their own things. Also, this lack of entitlement, that instead of giving your children too much or giving your children things, that they have opportunities to earn to get something. Uh, of course, we have people that are struggling financially, but a lot of people, even struggling financially, they pour the toys. They will go into debt to buy their children the newest toy from Toys R Us or to get the next thing, and they're always in gifting, gifting, gifting their children, and their children never do anything to earn it, and they get more than they could ever play with in 10 lifetimes. All of that helps to build into the heart, I deserve this, it's appropriate, I do get it, and so I want to continue being selfish. So I would work on the root problem. Excuse me. I would talk with your husband, and the two of you sit down and let's talk about how do we stop the first in line attitude. Remember when Rebecca, our first, was little, and she was a talker from the beginning, but she was still really small and had just said words and hadn't really strung a sentence together. And so still, I don't know, under 15 months. And although she could say things, and we were doing something and I picked up something on the floor and she turned to me in absolutely perfect English and said, "I had it first." Wow. Okay. Clearly, being with friends in the nursery at church had taught her some things. So she didn't have to learn it from siblings because she was the first. But see, it's just built in. So I would look for ways to deal with it. I would talk about it. One of the things that you can diffuse is to not have so many opportunities where they are get to be first in line. Instead, maybe you have a rotation basis. When our children got big enough, well, that's what we began to do about car seats because everybody wanted to sit in the front seat. So I have tall children, so they can sit in the front seat rather early, and we just rotated. And if you were in the front seat this time, then you were in the back, and we just moved around so there wasn't an argument. And then the wonderful thing, I love punishment fit the crime, to have the appropriate discipline for the transgression or the issue. So if someone's complaining about it, if someone's unkind about it, then they lose the privilege of being able to do it or have it or be first. The younger your children are, the more grace you're going to have with this because it's going to take a while and training. But as you begin working on it, analyze what's going on. Does this happen more when you're tired and you're not paying attention? Have you allowed them to do this over and over and over so it's a learned behavior, it's a reinforced behavior, and maybe it's happening when you're tired or you've had a long day, you've been at church all day, or whatever it is. Start analyzing when it's happening and how it's happening. Begin dealing with it when it isn't happening. Discussing it, planning for it, and then deal with it when it is. Look for opportunities for generosity and lack of entitlement. Let's see. I'm looking for some more questions here. Y'all go over here and write some more questions. Okay, here's a question. When do I need to start disciplining my 1-year-old? Okay, let's use a very broad definition for discipline. Okay, discipline is, I've never defined, intentional, any kind of intentional restriction from what a child wants with consequences. I will tell you, with my first, it was really hard. way before I was ready to begin intentional training and real restriction of the sin nature coming out of my child. Bill was saying, sweetheart, we need to deal with this. Sweetheart, we need to deal with this. Okay? Now, so I was disobedient. I thought I knew better, and instead of listening to his wisdom and allowing him to lead us, I continued with what I want to do. Oh, she's just so little. They're just babies. And I should have listened to Bill because the training needed to start much earlier than I did. Children, I like the idea of distracting and allowing them to turn to something else, but it's appropriate to tell children no and to begin that training. One of the things I really like, see, discipline and training go hand in hand. If you look up, discipline just means making a disciple. And so discipline and training go together. So in your training, I like with babies, the baby speak or whatever it is, where you learn to do signs. Okay, I like it for a lot of reasons. For one reason, one of the reasons is because children can communicate on such a level that their voice never could. They can talk with you about things and express themselves where verbally they might not be able to do it for quite a long time. It takes training, it takes conscious diligence in order to begin to teach it, and then when your baby goes, to just hand them what they want undoes what you're doing. The other reason I like this, because children have to submit to you and they have to do more instead of just pointing and saying, or fussing. So that's discipline. That is discipleship training in your children. You are restricting, I'm going to look and get a better definition for discipline, but it's discipleship training is what it is. And you can have a very small baby very early, begin with the more and begin to tell them eat and the few basic signs and thank you, that you begin to have them be courteous and I'm all done is so much better than I want to get down. So you are already disciplining by having them have to respond to you with signs and communications, submitting to your leadership if they want what they want. But you're going to have to train and you have to give them time to learn it, and then you're going to have to slow down your life and take the time to follow through with it. You say, how old? A 1-year-old, probably, since the question's written like this, probably he or she rules the house. And they kind of get whatever they want. Unfortunately, it kind of comes. Same thing. Our first really had us very well trained by one. So that's what you need to do. I would begin the training. I would have conversations with your husband off from your child and begin to talk about the situations. Consider if you haven't started baby speak, other things. Begin to have them learn to respond to you and to respect you and to do what you ask, not just you jumping every time with what they want. Kicking and screaming to get out of a chair. There are so many ways. I remember, wow, Rebecca wasn't much, so she really wasn't talking. And this was in the days when television still had knobs. And so we had a pull on and off knob. Well, you all don't have to worry about knobs. You have remote controls, and I have seen babies who cannot speak pick up and start, changing pages on the mom's phone, and they know how to work the electronics. The children have free access to all of that. That goes back to the entitlement. It's my world, and I'll have anything I want. I think definitely, Jamie, that you should be controlling what he can get to and what he can't. Okay, so back to the television story. She found that the knob turned the TV on and off, and that was a lot of fun. And so Bill explain to her, no, do not touch this. And so she tried several times head on to go over to it to do it and reached out and touched it. And Bill started training her at that point about what would happen if she touched it. And so she didn't like that. So she thought about it. And so she would turn around facing us, smiling, being the sweet little baby, our firstborn, put her hands behind her back and started backing up so she could get away with it to turn it on. And so Bill continued to have to deal with it because, again, the problem is their heart. And you want to be grace, but you want to be grace and truth, and you want to take the time to train them and see where they're running the world and where they need to come underneath you, but do it with gentleness and kindness. If you're angry, just don't do it. Let them get away with it. I would say that goes for anything except for someone's safety. Only with their safety would I say, okay, if they're truly in danger, then you can be angry and deal with it. Otherwise, get yourselves under control. You're trying to teach your children self-control. Well, you need to model it. And if you can't, if you are angry, if you're upset, then you need to just get away, get yourself calmed down, and come back. I remember times where I just said, sit on the sofa, and I went to the bathroom, got myself under control, and I came back and then I dealt with it. But even better, I mean, if you had to, you never deal with it. You just absolutely need to have yourself under control. So I hope that helps. Um, okay. Question. So much of our life nowadays is computerized. How much screen time is appropriate for my 4.5-year-old? Amelia, you're not going to like what I say. Okay, I have read the books. I've read the scientific studies, even the American Pediatric Association, not a conservative Christian right-wing organization. Everything says the same thing. Keep them off of it. Period. Uh, just keep them off. I can't encourage you enough. The less you use it, the better for your children. There are so many things that happen. One thing is children nowadays, remember all this training we're talking about and the whining, complaining, and the me-ness that you don't like, how your child thinks their world is about themselves. And two things. Number one, God made children to be self-entertaining. And so, believe it or not, for thousands and thousands of years, children didn't have electronic media to be babysat by or to entertain them. Yes, and we survived exceedingly well. The problem with electronic media is it entertains the children. And so you are taking away one of the greatest privileges and gifts you can give your child is for your child to learn to be self-entertaining. Like the concept, and the same thing with babies, having to learn sometimes to calm themselves down, not moms jumping the first time, that they need to learn a little bit about how to, there's a term and I can't think of it, but all of it. It's learning that I'm not the king of the world, and entertaining them all the time makes them more demanding because they're used to someone entertaining instead of having to bring it from themselves. Okay, so it goes back to a selfishness and a worldview. The other thing is it's terribly unhealthy. Children that grow up playing and climbing trees and reading books and having raw materials to play with develop intellectually, personally. They have a huge attention span. Electronic media will kill your attention span just like that. I spoke with a mom recently, and their pattern was that when they were in the car, lots of times DVDs playing in the car. I can't tell you how much I hate that. There's so much I could tell you on this. I'm going to beat the same drum. And they began listening to books on tape, and the kids have absolutely swallowed it whole. They don't want to get out of the car. In fact, she said the other day they're at the end of the last tape of the series, or end of the last part of the story of the series they're listening to, and they pulled into the garage, and the kids didn't want to go in the house. And so they sat in the car and listened all the way to the end of the series. Okay, fascinated. I don't know if this mom understands how much she just did for her children, expanding their brains, their vocabulary, their imagination, and making them less selfish people. Because when someone's entertaining you, then you are demanding and want more and more and more from others. So if you were to pay me to be to do a consultation, I would say get it out of your children's lives. Period. Okay? You start getting older, something else, okay? But under the age of 8, there's just no reason. Okay? I like children becoming part of the world and learning. That's okay. They won't be behind anything. In fact, they'll be ahead because of how they use their brains. Go read. There's so much information out there. Just most people don't want to read the information because they don't like what it really says. So, Amelia, there is no screen time allowance for a 4.5-year-old. Okay? Children who are read to become thinkers. Children who are the creativity, the self-entertaining is what God made children to be. So you say, well, what do we do? Well, you're going to have to train yourself and them. You're going to have to unaddict all of you from the electronic media, and then you begin to give them things that are entertaining and interesting to them, and let them build back up the ability to self-entertain and the attention span to do it. I promise you, if you do this, you'll come back to me in the future and say, thank you, and you can write me a $15,000 check if you want. I do want to share something with you all. I know some of you that are on here are already connected with our ministry. We are, as you can see on the banner, Impact Parenting is my ministry. And this is just an example of the types of things we want to do to equip you. Our goal is to encourage and equip and strengthen women and as wives and moms, and through you, your family, your marriage, and future generations. But if we can't stay in touch with you, we can't continue to equip you and minister to you. We have a number of ways we're doing it. And also, in addition to that, if you are in good connection with the ministry, we need you in a big way to share this with other people. A lot of you may be on here because a friend shared on Facebook or they passed an email to you. So that's what way you could help us. So let me show you a few ways that you can be in touch with us, our ministry. Okay. Now I'm working on this, trying to get this technology here. Okay. This is our event here, and that's one of the ways you can help us the next time that we have an event. If you would share it and share it and share it and tell other people. In fact, when we're through here, there will be, I'll be posting the YouTube link, and you can either go back and hear it or you can share it with someone else. Now, I'm sorry because I am trying to help you with some of this. Here's another way that we can help you. Okay. For me to get better at technology, that's going to be fun. All right. Here's another way that we minister, that you can stay in contact with us. This is an example of our blogs that we have. This would come out to you. This was one of the very best. Go back and look this one back up on our website. I'll show you our website. But regularly throughout the week, not to flood your inbox, but want to equip you and sometimes have guest people write, sometimes borrow from others, just various ways. So if you're not on our e-loop, on our list to get emails, please contact us and let us help you with that. Also, here's our website, which I hope you're seeing. Our website, Impact Parenting. We have resources. All our blogs are posted on there. You can always come to or send to it. There's the contact, get in touch with us, and our blogs. Also, we list our events, and you can always get in touch with us if you'd like to support our ministry. This is a 501c3, and it is through through people's donations that we're able to offer all that we do. And our Impact Parenting Facebook, powerful way. It takes everybody 1.5 seconds. If you would go up to like us, but then go and either get notifications, but particularly see first, would put it on your feed, and then you don't even have to read it. I'd like you to, but you don't have to read them. But if you would just send it on, like it, send it on to other people, like it, send it on to other people, that will help us get this ministry out. And I'm hoping this is showing here. All right, here's how you can keep in contact with us. I'm going to make sure that this is working for you. Okay, working at this. Oops. Okay, sorry. Let me get you back to here. Okay. One of these days I'll actually learn how to do the technology. Okay, here's how you can keep in contact with You Don't. Like I said on Facebook, if you'll check See First or even get notifications, but just See First, and then that will keep you up to date. I post things on there that I never send over email, and I post things on email that never get to Facebook. So See First will just pull it up on your feed, and then you can really help other women know by sending that around. You can contact me, Cheryl, at impactparenting.com anytime you want, or go to the website, Impact Parenting. What? Oh, good. Thank you. I was just finding out. My technology person was letting me know. There. Let me see. Okay. Wow. Denise has a big question. Okay, let's look at this question. How do you foster a relationship with your daughter that she will feel safe to come to you and tell you anything versus being too scared of the consequences to tell? Teenage issues. Okay. Boy, Denise, that is a fabulous question. It's really important. I struggled with it. Part of the reason I struggled with it is because I wanted to fix things for my children. And I operated sometimes out of fear, particularly in my widowhood. I don't know if all of you know, we lost Bill 16 years ago. All my children were still at home, all 5. My oldest had just graduated, and our baby had just turned 4. And so if you're married, I wasn't blessed with any kind of a balance after we lost him. And like we talked about, how he helped me learning when they were little to begin disciplining and training a lot sooner than my tender mom's heart thought we should. Same thing. Good conversations is what everything's about. And so Shaunti Feldhahn, great books for parents only. Get it. If you don't own it, get it, get it, get it. We have it here in the ministry, but get the book for parents only. And she just does it so excellently. And she has done research, and she shows you what the kids say. And teens, and it's like 97% of teens say we would share more with our parents if we didn't think they would overreact. So it's the overreaction that stops them from sharing. So we've got to learn. I think a lot of moms overreact or shut things down out of what I was saying, just fear. And that's not what we need to do, because this is where you want to talk. Okay? Want them to feel safe to talk. So let them talk without overreacting. The best thing is let them talk and just listen and do what it says in James 1:19. Be quick to listen and slow to speak. I am 100 times better listener now than I was all the time that my kids grew up. I listened a lot, but as they got older into their teen years sometimes, I wanted to try and help them with the right answer and lead them to a right answer rather than really just talking about the issue and the problem. So I would just encourage you, Denise, to spend time with your daughter. Let her talk to you. Be quick to listen, slow to speak. Listen and listen and listen. One of the very best places I ever found to listen was lying on the bed next to them in the dark, with particularly my teenagers. Just lying in there and not saying anything and letting them just talk and talk and talk and talk. And we did it other times, but if I could go back, that would be something I would really change. Lower the reaction. Instead of worrying about getting the right answer to them, let them talk. And let's think about it. And let's come back together and talk and refer to it and have an ongoing discipleship relationship. Surprise, it comes back to discipleship. Think about the people in your life, Denise. Who are the people you like to talk to and share things with? It's someone who absolutely keeps your confidence and you can trust them. And it's somebody that you can open your heart up and just vomit all over them, and they still love you and will probably be quick to listen and slow to speak. I have some people in my life that'll do that, and I can just talk about the deep, dark yuckiness of my thoughts or my reactions, and they love me and they listen to me, and then later on, if it's time, if I need to hear, they'll speak truth to me too. But I think we could really begin by listening a lot, giving them an opportunity. Also, if you have introverts or quality time introverts, a lot of boys just don't talk as easily or as readily. So if you have children in those kind of categories, you really need to be listening, because if they start to talk, you need to drop everything and listen to what they say, because they may shut down and not open up again. But we want everyone to, but particularly those groups tend to do it a little more. So I hope that was helpful. Tara asked about devotional books and for children. I'm always trying to find them because I'm very picky with them. One of the things I'm trying to do is to write a book for you to read out loud to your children on God's attributes, and telling it through stories, developing the theme with interesting stories and narrative. We are working on it again this summer and trying to get the proposal ready to send to agents. So if you'd like to get that book into your home, then pray for us, please, because I think it would be an amazing book that would have a huge impact because of the deep truth. Speaking of which, starting in September on Monday nights, We're having a woman and older teen Bible study that meets in Edmond, if you're in Edmond, anywhere in the Oklahoma City area. And we're going to do the attributes of God together. It's a fabulous study, very thought-provoking, and lots intentionally interactive, lots of conversation. And I promise you, you will be a different person. And you will have a view of God that is astounding. And this would be my 5th time through it to do it again. And every time I love it because I just get a bigger and bigger, more accurate picture of who He is. Just have a, let me look here. Sorry. Some of these are the same. I'm sorry, I'm having to read the questions. Trying. Wow. Some of this is hard about 2-year-olds acting out, and we'll have to get to some of this discipline and training. Let me see. Okay, just a little bit of this. Okay, so again, Kyla's saying she has 5, 4, and 2, and it's beginning to get overwhelming to go with bathroom breaks and corralling them and safety and discipline. Okay, Kyla, I will tell you, you're going to have to take the time to train your children and to have a relationship with them. It can be done. It can be done kindly, and it can be done well. Parents of big families 20 years ago and before were some of the very best behaved children anywhere. And it wasn't because they were all perfect little angels. It's because the parents had relationships with the children. The children developed character, and they understood how to be well behaved in public. So you're going to have to start small to succeed big. So I would begin discussions about how we act in public. I would begin to practice it and to role model it, to do it together. For example, okay, we're going to go wherever there's a problem. I don't know. Maybe it's at the bank or it's at church or something, and the children are acting out. So then you talk about it and say, let's practice how to act the next time mom's waiting in line at the bank. And so you have them practice it and actually do it, and you explain it. And then before you go, everybody remember, now what are we going to do when we get there? And they begin to say it. Now saying it and practicing it are different from doing it. And so, like I said, begin to start small. Your children can be a delight to take into public. They can be well behaved. They can honor you and your husband by their behavior in public, but you've got to practice. See, we're missing so many opportunities because our society is so segmented now, and children are put in one place and parents in another. Just sitting in church. Children that used to sit in church learned how to be well behaved. Now, my children weren't little sticks that sat still, but we brought quiet things to do, and they learned, and we had to intentionally work with them, and sometimes we have to take somebody out and talk with them or help them to get a little more control, and they do it a little bit. You start small, succeed big. So you can find out that it's a whole lot of fun to take your children places. Now, yes, 5, 4, and 2 is young, but they can learn to do it, and they can learn to help each other. The 4 and 5-year-old can learn to help the 2-year-old. And again, going back to the selfishness entitlement, give them responsibilities. Children learn to be responsible or better behaved children. So in all of these, see, isn't it interesting? So many of the different questions all feed back to you're taking the time to train, you're being aware of your children and looking at them and thinking about them and listening to them. One of the things that we did, and I'd love to train moms to do, is we call it the interrupt rule, and to train your children that they have to come up, they want something from you, and you're engaged talking to someone, doing something else, on your Pinterest, texting on your phone, or cooking dinner, talking on the phone, whatever it is. And instead of speaking to you, they just put their hand on your arm, and then they wait patiently. Now, there's a lot of training involved in here. You talk about it, you role model it, you practice it. But you're going to have to be trained to be attentive to it. And so one of the things I would do with my children is I would reach over. If I couldn't do it and they put their hand on my arm, I would put my hand on their arm. And because I've already told them, honey, I hear you, but you just have to wait a little longer. So what's happening? They're learning self-control. They're learning they're not the God of the universe. They're learning to submit to their parents. They're being trained. They're being discipled. They're learning to put other people first. So just learning to do that could help stopping the whining, could help stopping the misbehaving. All of the other things will feed into each other. So you begin to practice the small things so that they're learning to respond to you and submit to you. You're training them and practicing to do it. You're alert and responding to it so they can be trained. And then you remember when your friend's over and y'all are having coffee and they run in the room and they, Mom, 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 you go, just a minute, remember, what do you need to do? And you remind them what they need to do. And sometimes when I had to do that, I would, particularly if they're really young, you remind them, you get to do it, you apologize to your friend, you have them put their hand on your arm, you put your hand on them, and then wait about 30 seconds, not very long at all, just so they are completely quiet and they begin to learn their lesson. It works, but it takes training for you so that you can train them, and you discuss it, you talk about it. Your children should be a delight in public, okay? Not because they're afraid of you, but because you've developed responsibility, you've developed all of these things, and Mom, you've taken the time to train them. Train them, train them, train them. Kindness. You talk about it. If you need to, someone had asked a question about what do we do in public, you remove them and talk with them. I would never do any physical interaction of correction in public at all, anywhere. But I would want to just talk about it, and if you need to, leave your grocery cart and go home. Let your children know you really mean it. Not I mean it because I'm mad and you're going to get it, but I really mean it. I love you so much. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to help you become the man or woman that God plans for you to be. And that's the truth about discipleship. The big bottom line is it's the gospel. They need the gospel. We need the gospel. The gospel is we're sinners and we need a Savior. And Jesus is the Savior. And your children need to hear it from you all of their lives. And we need the gospel over and over. It's just how much I need Jesus. And so you take the time. Take the time. Take the time. And the phrase I've been saying to everyone, and I will keep saying it, is, so we pray. So you training your children, you can train, they're fish that are trained. So there's more than training. It's their hearts. You want God to work through your life, your words, your example with them so that He has access to their hearts. And then you pray, asking the Holy Spirit to open their hearts to Him. Give them a hunger for Him and His Word. I still pray that mine are all believers. They're all over 20 years old. Most are all taller than I am. But I still pray that they would hunger and thirst for His righteousness. In fact, I spend a big chunk of my early morning time praying verses for my kids. I would encourage you to do the same, because you don't want behavior modification. You want Jesus Christ to invade their heart. You want them to live in the gospel of grace because of who Jesus is. One last thing, and I repeat things a lot, but I want to keep careful, watch on our time, is get very good at apologizing. Not explaining things away, but apologizing so that they see humility and they hear just how much you need Jesus and that it's okay to know that you need Jesus and to see it in your life so that you disciple them towards Him. Okay, thank you so much. Uh, Enjoyed our time together. I hope it was helpful, and we're planning on being back next month. Maybe we'll have someone with us on the panel. If not, I hope you can come. You would really bless the ministry if you would share this a lot with people. And once we get the YouTube up, that you would post it on Facebook and send it around. And as a matter of fact, if you look on your page there, it'll have the link for the YouTube, I believe. And so when that's up, if you would share it with other people, send them to it. And they can listen and look forward to being with you. And I hope you enjoyed your chocolate. And we'll see you next month.